The interesting thing about Capricorn Clark was the like Suge's brother or relatives, like baby mom, like something like that. She had relations to Suge, also Diddy. Okay, Suge Knight recently spoke about Capricorn Clark. Here's this.
I definitely can hear you. What's good with you, man? Well,
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking the opportunity, Suge. Co-founder Death Row Records. For everybody at home, of course, you know who Suge Knight is. So you
no
keep coming up.
co-founders, only one founder.
All right, the
Don't
one and
believe the
only,
lies.
the OAO,
Yeah.
the OAO, Suge Knight.
Yeah.
So tell us about Capricorn Clark and whether you believe she is a credible witness for the prosecution to make a racketeering case against Sean Diddy Combs.
Well, look, I say this all the time. Puffy and I are not friends, but Puffy should definitely walk. At the end of the day, how I know Capricorn and when I first heard about Capricorn, it was back when I was doing prison time. When I was doing prison time, it was a guy that didn't work for Death Row, but he was over the security company. This guy, Capricorn, broke his windshield in the back of his truck. He wanted her to pay for it. She couldn't pay for it. A guy named Reggie White Jr. told her, well, you got to have sex with me or you pay for it. So she couldn't pay for it, so he forced her to have sex with him, but they were still talking after that, right? But the most important thing is that it was other executives that was involved in Puffy's life. And for Puffy to be the only guy that gets on the stand is a sad day for hip-hop. Because once Capricorn had got beaten up allegedly, everybody said, well, she got her ass whooped. And when she was approached by an executive from Interscope, and you got to remember, Capricorn wasn't an artist on Interscope. Puffy wasn't doing business with the guy in Interscope. If you guys want his name, I'll tell you. And when they talked to him, Interscope gave Capricorn $1 million, a check, for don't say nothing about the incident with her and Puffy.
Now he's giving a little bit of context here to what we heard Capricorn testify to. Remember, Capricorn had left Diddy's, enterprise, and then she said she went to Interscope, but then she came back afterwards, and that was a little bit confusing. But apparently, it's now obvious that she wasn't doing anything over at Interscope. So we then get to find out that supposedly Jimmy Iovine gives her $1 million just to stay away from Diddy. Now, it's kind of unclear, and not stay away from Diddy, because it feels like it was like, because it's not like they hated Diddy, right? Jimmy Iovine has a good relationship with Diddy. So it looked like they were probably like giving her that money to be like, okay, just don't go back and fuck shit up. Don't say nothing about Diddy, blah, 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 blah. It was almost like hush money in a sense. That's what she kind of was alluding to, right? All right, let's see if we can find a little bit on that. Capricorn Clark Interscope $1 million. All right. And that was after Diddy pushed her, supposedly, right? Here we go.
That summer of 2006 way. He said, "You hate it here? Get the out of my house. You hate that."
And in listening to Bigot, there are reasons.
So again, she had left to work at Interscope, and then she came back.
Puffy's life. And for Puffy to be the only guy that gets on the stand is a sad day for hip-hop. Because once Capricorn had got beaten up allegedly, everybody said, well, she got her ass whooped. And when she was approached by an executive from Interscope, and you got to remember, Capricorn wasn't an artist on Interscope. Puffy wasn't doing business with the guy in Interscope. If you guys want his name, I'll tell you. And when they talked to him, Interscope gave Capricorn $1 million, a check, for don't say nothing about the incident with her and Puffy. She got mad because she had to pay taxes on it. And she thought it was a settlement where she didn't have to pay taxes on it. So when Jimmy Iovine gave her that check, that's when all hell broke off. But at the same time, I don't think this is a case where Puffy should be going to prison. And
do you believe Capricorn is Capricorn believable with this story with Diddy?
This is what I do know. I was in New York. And when I was in New York, it was me and a limo driver. That's it. I'm in different spots, eating just by myself. I walks out, I see Capricorn, and I see another. So those two hung out with me in New York, from restaurants to running around to doing whatever. So I don't know if the part that she was so scared of Puffy that they wouldn't talk to me, because I'm hanging out with them in New York, just us three. And I'm not here to badger nobody, but at the same time, when Reggie Wright Jr. basically made Capricorn, she said it over and over and over. I don't want to have sex with this fat I don't know if I can cuss on here. I just have sex with the fat man.
Too late.
But, okay, but they did. And she continued to be around, right? But when it's all said and done, how could every person who's involved with Puffy is not on the stand, except for Puffy?
I get
at
it.
some point,
I get it.
the law got to be blind.
I get it. Shug,
And
thank you very much for giving us.
Hey, for sure.
Go
One
ahead.
last thing before I
ahead.
go, you got to remember, Death Row and the Employees and Bad Boy was really good friends. A lot of them. Reggie Wright Jr. and the other guy that be with Puffy, I forgot his name, the other fat dude, right? But they called Reggie Wright Jr. to do security for Puffy and Biggie the night Biggie got shot. So I can't see that they will look at Capricorn affiliation with Death Row that bad and that type of threats. I'll be surprised. Gene, that's his name. Gene and Reggie Wright Jr. is great friends. So that's got to be understanding that something's there. And we just can't jump to conclusions and say, throw Puffy under the bus. Like I said, him and I are not friends, but Puffy definitely should walk. What's right is right, wrong is wrong. You guys enjoy your day. Nice talking to you.
Shug, I appreciate it. We'll speak again. Thank you for your.
By the way, the homeboy, the Punisher, is still on a press
Well,
run.
his stage name, website, and at their first, knowing that this is such a high-profile case, and here you are in the spotlight in this way.
Yeah, it's been like a whirlwind. You know, a constant outreach from media outlets like this, and just friends and family, people from junior high school actually reaching
Really?
out just randomly, you know, to check in and speak up. It's been a very interesting, trying week.
You've reflected, I think, in some time about what your testimony said and what it was like in that courtroom. Can you tell me a little bit what it was like to be on that stand a few feet away from Sean Diddy Combs, who you obviously had
That it was
dancer, and this was an interaction that would have resulted in sexual intercourse?
exactly. So
Okay.
yeah, so this is nuance. It's not something that happens. You know, I've done thousands of parties. This is the only time I was propositioned with something like this, and it was in such magnitude. Like we're in the Trump Hotel, it's like these huge suites, and you can tell this is a very high-profile couple. So I just wanted to be as professional for the scenario as I would assume was required.
Did you ever travel outside of New York with them?
I did not.
When you were engaged in this encounter and intimate with Cassie Ventura, as you've said on the stand, you were asked about whether you had any notice or any idea how she felt about the interaction, whether she was consenting, whether she was uncomfortable in any way. You testified you did not feel as though she was uncomfortable at all. Can you explain?
Yeah, so there was always, like, before the sexual activity, there was always, like, downtime. So I would be greeted by Cassie, kind of put in a room, and we would have casual conversation, you know.
About how long did that last?
10, 15 minutes, you know, and it would be, you know, consistent. How's work going? How's the parties? How's things? So it seemed like a very cordial, laid-back situation, and I actually believed that the scenario was real. It was like her birthday. This was something they were doing as a couple that wasn't normal. I mean, that wasn't their norm, and I honestly thought I was the only person they were engaging with. So I had almost a belief that I was, wow, like this is a cool thing. Like I'm the person they're choosing for this kind of fetish type of environment. And
Nothing seemed illegal to you or anything out of sorts?
Not even close. Like I didn't even get any thought of anybody being like under the influence of any drugs or anything. It seems like a very for the circumstance, everybody was just normally in their right state of mind, and this was just something they did for sexual pleasure.
You never saw any violence?
Nothing close.
You know, interestingly, I mean, you say you haven't seen any violence, you didn't see anyone under the influence of drugs, and you didn't have any idea that she was not consenting in some way. Why do you think you were called to testify?
I'm still trying to figure that out. Because after the fact, I'm the only thing that I can kind of maybe think is, you know, there was directions, right? It was in my testimony. It was clear that it was him, I guess, somewhat in control. You know, not
so?
overbearingly. I mean, it was said to me this scene we were creating was for her husband, aka him. So the only thing I can say is maybe they were trying to show another element of control. And even though in my case it wasn't forceful or aggressive, but it's still another dynamic that maybe they were trying to establish.
Did you ever see cameras or
I did
anything being
not.
filmed?
I did not. The rooms were always extremely dim and dark, just candlelit. So it was, if there were cameras, it would have to be some sort of infrared, low light scenario because
Yeah, I seen y'all say it, and yeah, I just posted on Instagram. Big 45, aka Big 47 as well. His name is Donald Trump. Dress him with caution. He was asked if he would think about potentially pardoning Diddy if Diddy was actually convicted, and this is what he said.
You mentioned once in 2012 that Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. He has since found himself in some very serious legal trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage. I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken.
Yo, one thing with this nigga Trump, Trump is such a TV guy. He's always aware of what's getting the most attention. He's like a reality TV president. Like he knows viral. Most of his biggest moments, it's like he's trying to not necessarily doing too much crazy shit to go viral because he's still the president. But one thing about him, people have always said, he knows what is the hottest topic of the day, even if it's just pop culture. It could be a divorce. He would know because he cared. Like he comes from The Apprentice, where he used to care so much about motherfucking TV ratings. So you hear him. He's getting a lot of attention.
Spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, that relationship busted up. From what I read, I don't know. He didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden. You know, it's different. You become a much different person when you run for politics and you do what's right. I could do other things, and I'm sure he'd like me, and I'm sure other people would like me, but it wouldn't be as good for our country. As we said, our country's doing really well because of what we're doing. So it's not a popularity contest. So I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated, whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact on me.
Mr. President. Apprentice, you mentioned once in 2012 that Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. He is since.
Okay. We'll see how that goes. Anyway.
because it was very dark in there.
Who paid you?
Always Cassie.
Did you ever see where the money came from?
I did not. Only one time, like I said in my testimony, we were actually engaging in sexual activity, and he threw a stack of $100 bills on the bed. That Cassie turned to him and asked him was everything was fine. And he just said, I'm enjoying it, in so many words. And I know that money was collected after the fact and given to me. So that would be the only scenario where I guess money came directly from him by way of, you know, slamming it on the bed, like almost like how somebody would do at like at a strip club.
How, when you've reflected back on your testimony, do you think that your testimony was helpful to the prosecution or the defense in any way?
I mean, going into it, I always thought that because I saw no violence or any outward aggression. I always wondered if this was more beneficial to the defense, but I don't understand the angle of how they're trying to take my testimony and connect it to what.
I'm gonna be honest with you. This is the most credible witness to me. Like, everyone has like a little angle. He clearly, he's doing these media interviews because he wants to sell a book. He has a book that's, supposedly Diddy and Cassie are mentioned in it, but they're mentioned in a way where, if it wasn't for this trial, you would never know. He doesn't use them by name. He actually refers to them as a married couple, and he kind of doesn't really say he just says high profile couple. When he's telling the story, he puts no sauce on it. He ain't sassy, no sauce on it. He tells us like it is. It seems pretty boring. Like, yeah, they propositioned me. I did it. You never said him and Cassie. It felt like it was just business as usual. And it feels like I'm the type of person, I believe the person who, when you're telling the story, you tell a little bit that favors both sides. If your story only favors one, I'm like, all right, you starting to cap a bit. You feel what I'm saying?
What they're trying to prove, it's very nuanced what constitutes a RICO and racketeering, and I don't know enough yet. I haven't heard enough to see if my test.
Because he admits, he's like, yeah, I didn't really, for the stuff I'm hearing other people wanted to say or they thought they were going to hear, I didn't know how my testimony would benefit the prosecutor. And they must have prepped with him.
Testimony aligns with what they're trying to prove.
One thing that Cassie said on the stand was that she wanted Diddy to know that people were not disposable. And it almost sounded like she was talking collectively about everyone involved in these sexual encounters and these so-called freak-offs. Did you yourself ever feel as though you were either disposable or that you yourself were being trafficked in some way or prostituted?
No, not trafficked in some way or whatever. There was always pressure in terms of being disposable because obviously I'm there to create something, like a scene, to create an environment. So at times where there was sexual pressure, because it's out of my norm, I did have a feeling of, okay, I'm one, scenario where if I don't perform in the right way, if I don't create the right ambiance, then maybe I won't get called back. But that's the most pressure that I had. There was no indication of I really believe they were just a happy couple, and this was a sexual fetish that they had.
Do you ever see them be affectionate during these freak-offs together?
I did not. They would never actually interact in front of me. There was like kind of a cue where if he needed to speak to her or have some sort of direction with her, he would just stand up and leave the room. And if she saw that, she would follow him out. They would be gone 5-10 minutes. Then she'll come back and we'll resume for the most part. But no interaction in front of me. No even conversation other than his directions, which were subtle: move the light, turn your body, maybe put more oil. Those type of gestures in communication.
You said you wanted to, after your testimony, feel at peace with what you've said. Knowing what you do now about what Cassie Ventura has said about how she's felt about these freak-offs, what would you say to her if you could?
I would apologize. I would apologize because I had no idea, no indication what she was going through. And if, obviously my involvement kind of furthered her suffering, so just me knowing that as a man, being raised by a single mom and a grandma, just the thought of partaking in a scenario where a woman is possibly being abused is tough to hear. So, I would just apologize to her and, tell her that I was really remorseful and regret if I contributed to a bad experience for her.
Wow. This guy's a straight shooter. I rock with him. I ain't gonna cap with you.
Your perspective.
Hey, remember one thing. Don't live reverse.
That nigga shook.
I'm not saying Puffy not guilty on majority stuff. He'd probably be more happy in prison than in the streets. Because at least in prison, he can get all the baby all he wants. Puffy did have sex with too many higher up people in the industry. Now, I'm not talking about women. It's the big world, but it's a... Well, number one is this. To say he's part of a racketeering and make a case, they would have to put other executives in custody also, which they would never do. It's a guy named Jimmy Iovine.
What?
We was, I consider him family. Been known him forever. Jimmy Iovine used to be a second engineer, and then he started working for Interscope, and I made that company. I built that company, me personally. And Puffy beat up a girl named Capricorn. Beat the shit out of her. Jimmy Iovine, one of Puffy guys, and Puffy approached Capricorn. And Jimmy told Capricorn, you're going to take this money and you're going to shut your mouth and leave it alone. And I'm going to give you $1 million. Puffy didn't give Capricorn $1 million. Jimmy Iovine gave Capricorn a check from Interscope. And Universal should be ashamed of their fucking self that this big old publicly traded company will allow Interscope to give this girl $1 million check.
And this woman,
rapper,
should,
not a singer,
just to be
not a
clear,
producer.
just to be clear, Capricorn Clark, she's actually been giving evidence in the case. She was your former assistant, and she.
No, she wasn't my assistant, but she did hang around Death Row. She was Puffy's assistant. After she hung around Death Row. But what I'm trying to say is,
she worked for Death Row.
Jimmy gave her that $1 million check. She got mad because she thought that's a settlement check, and the settlement check, you don't supposed to take taxes out of it. So when they told her she had to pay taxes on it, she'd get pissed. But I feel bad for Capricorn, not because she's just lying, but I feel bad for Capricorn on the simple fact she went through a lot. But the other part about all this, if you're not going to say nothing to Jimmy and Interscope for doing something illegal, why would you just put Puffy in prison? The other thing is that, do Puffy do weird stuff? If Puffy got on the stand and told the truth, I know he'll walk. If he got on the stand and say, look, I'm gay and straight. I mess with guys. I mess with women. I do it all. Puffy not guilty for the things he did to these people. He's guilty for being a cold, freaky man that want freaky things done to him. But in the Cassie situation, they could not say he was having sex with the man also, because that'll make him like it's an orgy. It won't be like sex trafficking. It won't be like forcing stuff to do. But at the end of the day, there's no way Puffy should go to prison for the rest of his life. He should have. I think that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Sugar, you talked about Capricorn Clark, that he beat her very badly. He beat Cassie Ventura very badly. He was clearly very violent towards women. That's not a nice man, somebody who does that, clearly. But what you're saying is you don't.
My point is this. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's like this. I'm not saying Puffy not guilty on majority stuff. He should go to, and he done, right? Because even if he went to prison, it'd probably be a better thing. He'd probably be more happy in prison than the streets. Because at least in prison, he can get all the baby oil he wants. He can have all the men he wants, anyway, anyhow, and all day and all night. But what I'm trying to say is that some of the things, the charges is not true. But I know they're not going to let Puffy go to prison. You know Puffy not going to go to prison. They been knew that Puffy was beating these women. They been knew what Puffy was doing with these men. They been knew. I told people before that in Hollywood, and by the way, they never tried it with me. In Hollywood, we go out there with Andre Young, we go out there with Puffy, we go out with any of these people that used to be in that building. They go talk to Jimmy and all these other guys. Russell Simmons, Andre Arell, they had the thing where they take a hard-boiled egg, and it sounds nasty, but if the egg can go in these guys' rectum and it don't bust, they think they're doing a great job. And if you look at the pictures, you'll see Puffy and another actor. The guy was married to Katy Perry. After I said this, people start finding pictures of these guys holding up the hard-boiled egg. Only thing I'm saying is, the bottom line is this. That because Suge Knight don't wear a shiny suit and dance in the videos, I'm in prison illegally. I'm kidnapped. If it was anyone else, they'd give me a warrant and I'd be free. But since that is the other way around, they can get Puffy telling people they want to kill me. They can say they come in with guns to kill me. They can say they come in and do this. They can have people who shot me in One Oak do songs about shooting me. If you look at those people, who is those people in bed with? That's the question. It comes back to Puffy. If the FBI can tell me that they're trying to kill me, and the authorities can say they're trying to kill me, and I've been shot different occasions, and the very first time that they try to kill me, and I get away, and somebody happens to die, and I get to go to prison, when you really look at it, Puffy didn't have sex with too many higher-up people in the industry. Now, I'm not talking about women. They get convicted. That's what I believe.
You're talking about senior male record company executives.
Exactly.
Extraordinary. Let me just finish, Shug, by asking you this. You were there when one of the all-time most famous music icons was killed. You were sitting next to him. What was the last thing that Tupac said to you?
Well, the crazy thing about it, nobody followed us, nobody came, nobody come to help. And as we sitting there, I looking at him, he looking at me. I said, man, look, we ain't gonna go straight ahead this way to the hospital. I'm gonna do a U-turn, and we gonna go to the hospital off of Las Vegas Boulevard. He said, why? I said, because it's more lights and more people. And he said, well, let me drive. I said, I'm driving. He said, man, you bleeding all through your head. You can't see, I can see. And we was listening to oldies at first, but on the way towards the strip, he put in a song that says he did it about me. And I said, I never had a situation to have a conversation with Puffy.
Now, I think he's gonna address this idea because they keep mentioning it in the trial that Diddy pulled up on Suge.
Majority of the time, Puffy see me, he going out the back door or going down the street somewhere. Only time that I ever had a conversation with Puffy, and it wasn't even a real conversation, I was at the Roosevelt Hotel having dinner. Somebody came over to my table and said, Prince wants you to come watch his show right now. I said, Prince performing? I said, yeah. And Prince a real gangster. Prince, he liked the bullshit. So I go in, and they set me at a table with Puffy, Nas, a few other people. Prince playing his guitar, and he walked to the table and looked at me, looked at Puffy, and started laughing. You could tell he planned the whole thing. Next thing I know, I lean over and tell Puffy a few words, and before I can finish my sentence, Puffy gets up, his people gets up, and they cover him with coats and run him out the hotel.
And what were the words you said to him before he ran?
You got a lot of explaining to do, rat well, I ain't gonna cuss on your show. I said, you got a lot of explaining to convince me that you didn't have nothing to do what they said you did. So that's that. But you got to remember one thing.
Oh, yeah, I said, what's the egg test? Y'all never hear about that? Here's the egg
Hey,
test.
Suge, thank you.
One of the things is this. I don't care who you are. Prison and jail is a negative environment. If somebody can do something to them and get a name for themselves, they're going to actually do it. or if they can do whatever they feel they got to take the money from you, they can't pay for help. God bless us to have a voice. Let's use our voice. I had told Puffy a while back. I told T.D. Jakes a while back. Come on, collect calls. We can politic. Because one thing.
Fuck that. I didn't listen to this.
They used to have a joke. They never played this joke with me. And they used to walk in the Interscope office. They'd go back there and they'd be like, hey, we passed the test. I said, we haven't did the test. One dude said, well, don't say that in front of Mr. Knight because he's going to take it offensive and hurt somebody. I said, well, whatever it is, I probably will take it offensive or somebody will get their ass whooped. You know, that was me in those days. They used to have these guys, they used to call it the boiled egg test. They could take a boiled egg, a raw boiled egg, and have those guys put their pants down and bend over and they stick it up their ass. The eggs break, they say they're not ready yet. They ain't put enough work in. This is Hollywood. So everybody want to go act like they don't know what's going on.
Hold on a second, Suge.
You just look. That's all you got to do.
I have never heard of anything like that.
I'm not here to bring a person down in hip hop.